Hey, this is me, Myron Golden. Listen to me very carefully, because what I'm about to tell you is not theory, it's not guesswork, it's truth backed by evidence, experience, and execution. Most people don't fail because they're not smart enough or because they're not working hard. They fail because they're aiming at nothing. And when you aim at nothing, you hit it every time. Clarity is the launch pad of success. Until you know exactly what you want, you can't build momentum. You can't drive toward a goal that doesn't exist. Vague desires produce vague results. Specificity births strategy. If your goals are unclear, your progress will be inconsistent. Clarity creates acceleration because it removes hesitation. When you're not sure where you're going, you second guess every step. You move slowly. You stop to ask for directions every 5 minutes. But when the target is defined, you can run toward it with confidence. You don't need to pause to wonder if you're on the right path because the destination is burned into your mind. When you have clarity, your brain starts filtering the world through a different lens. Opportunities that match your vision stand out. Distractions are easier to ignore. People who don't align with your mission naturally fall away. Clarity sharpens your internal radar. It filters noise and amplifies signals. It turns chaos into focus. Most people waste years of their lives pursuing goals they never question. They chase someone else's definition of success. They follow the crowd, climb ladders that lead to roofs they don't even want to be on. But clarity forces you to ask hard questions. What do you actually want? Not what looks good, not what sounds impressive. What ignites your soul. Clarity isn't just about knowing what you want, it's also knowing what you don't want. It's about having the strength to say no to good things so you can say yes to the right things. A clear vision gives you the courage to walk away from options that dilute your destiny. It gives you a filter for decision making. If it doesn't serve the vision, it doesn't deserve your attention. Without clarity, you'll find yourself constantly starting over. You'll try one thing, then another, always searching, never settling. You'll move in circles and call it progress. You'll confuse activity with achievement. But the moment you define your destination, your path becomes obvious. You don't need to keep wandering, you just need to walk. Clarity allows you to plan in reverse. You can take your end goal and break it down into milestones, then break those milestones into daily actions. Every morning you wake up knowing exactly what to do. You're not reacting, you're executing. Your schedule reflects your priorities. Your time has purpose. Your energy has direction. It's easy to look at successful people and assume they're gifted, lucky, or connected. But more often than not, what separates them is focus. They knew what they wanted, they committed to it, and they refused to be distracted. Clarity gave them the edge. It wasn't talent alone, it was precision. Their steps were aligned with their vision. People with clarity don't need motivation. They run on mission. They don't need to be pushed. They're pulled by purpose. They get up early, stay up late, and endure setbacks because they're obsessed with the outcome. Clarity fuels passion. It makes hard work meaningful. It turns discipline into devotion. Clarity speeds up decision making. When you know where you're going, the right choice is obvious. You don't need to consult 10 people or second guess yourself for days. You can say yes or no with confidence. You stop procrastinating because you understand the cost of delay. Indecision dies in the presence of purpose. Clarity simplifies your goals. You stop chasing everything and start mastering something. You become dangerous in your lane. You go deep instead of wide. You build expertise, you build results, and eventually you build legacy. You're no longer scattered. You're strategic. You're not busy. You're effective. When you get clear, your energy consolidates. You stop leaking power on irrelevant things. You stop wasting mental bandwidth on hypotheticals and regrets. Your mind becomes a weapon, not a war zone. You stop fighting yourself and start backing yourself. Your internal dialogue shifts from what have I failed to what do I need to do next. Clarity creates consistency. It creates patterns. It allows you to show up the same way every day because you're driven by the same vision. You don't need to reinvent yourself every month. You're building momentum. You're stacking progress. Every day compounds. Every win builds on the last. You're not chasing motivation. You're moving on rhythm. The speed at which you succeed is directly tied to the clarity of your vision. The clearer the target, the faster you move. The faster you move, the sooner you fail forward. The sooner you fail forward, the quicker you learn. Clarity compresses time. It turns 5-year goals into 1-year accomplishments. When you don't know what you want, you become vulnerable to distractions. The world will always offer you an agenda. The world will always tell you what to care about. But if you don't own your vision, someone else will rent your life for their dream. Clarity puts you in control of your future. It puts your hands on the steering wheel. The lack of clarity creates anxiety. Confusion is paralyzing. When your mind is foggy, your spirit grows tired. You start to wonder if it's even worth trying. But when the fog clears, energy returns. Your eyes open. Your heart races. Your body aligns with your beliefs. You start to feel alive again. That's the power of purpose. Clarity gives you conviction, and conviction is louder than opinion. People may question your methods, they may doubt your timing, but they won't be able to shake your belief because your mind is already living in the future you're building. You don't need applause. You've already approved the vision. Clarity attracts support. When people see you're serious, when they see you're not guessing, not hoping, not dabbling, they want to be part of the movement. Investors, partners, clients, and followers respond to certainty. Vision creates velocity, and people follow momentum, not potential. Words are not just tools of communication, they are instruments of creation. Every word you speak carries power. Power to build or break, power to elevate or eliminate. Your words are not neutral, they are seeds, and every seed produces after its kind. You can't plant doubt and expect confidence to grow. You can't speak fear and expect faith to flourish. What you say consistently, you will eventually see. The atmosphere of your life is created by the language you use. If you walk around saying, I can't, I'm not good enough, this never works for me, you are constructing invisible walls that trap your potential. Those words may sound like harmless expressions of frustration, but they are in fact declarations to your subconscious, and your subconscious obeys. It takes what you say as orders and begins to build your reality accordingly. Most people speak their circumstances, but people of power speak their vision. They don't echo the present, they declare the future. Instead of saying, I'm broke, they say, I'm learning how to manage and multiply wealth. Instead of saying, I'm overwhelmed, they say, I'm growing into greater capacity. Words are not just commentary, they are commands. They don't describe your world, they define it. The difference between winners and warriors is often found in the way they talk. Winners speak victory even in the face of defeat. They don't deny their problems, but they refuse to glorify them. They acknowledge what's real without surrendering their expectation of change. They speak what they want to see until it becomes what they actually see. They use words as weapons, not wounds. Your brain listens to your mouth. Every time you say something, it gets reinforced in your neural pathways. If you constantly tell yourself you're not good at something, your brain will make sure that's true. It will delete or distort any evidence to the contrary. But when you begin to speak life, even when you don't feel it, your brain starts wiring itself to support that belief. Words change chemistry. They reprogram the narrative running in your head. What you repeatedly say, you start to believe. And what you believe, you begin to act on. And what you act on becomes habit. And what becomes habit eventually shapes your identity. So the words you casually throw around are actually forming the structure of your life. Every I am statement is a blueprint. Say it enough times and you'll live inside it. There is a massive difference between saying I am tired and saying I am recharging. One implies depletion, the other implies restoration. One drains you, the other fuels you. It might sound like semantics, but it's deeper than that. The words you choose become the emotional filter for your experience. They color how you interpret your day and determine how you feel about yourself. Negative language is like poison to progress. When you say things like, this always happens to me, or I can't win, you're not just venting, you're aligning your expectations with failure. You're giving power to patterns that don't serve you. But when you shift your language to empowerment, you disrupt the old cycle. You begin to plant new seeds with your words, seeds that grow into confidence, clarity, and courage. People often underestimate the power of self-talk. They speak to themselves in ways they'd never tolerate from anyone else. They beat themselves up with words. They label themselves with limitations. But self-respect begins with self-speech. Talk to yourself like someone who matters. Speak to yourself as if your future is listening, because it is. When you speak with authority, life starts to obey. Not because of magic, but because of alignment. When your words line up with your vision, your actions follow. Your energy changes. You move differently. You walk into rooms with presence. You don't beg for permission. You declare your intention. And the world responds to that level of certainty. You don't have to feel powerful to speak powerfully. In fact, the words you speak during weak moments are the most important. That's when your declarations do the deepest work. That's when you speak not from your strength, but to your strength. You call forth what's buried. You speak to the champion inside, even when the fight feels far away. When you shift your words, you shift your identity. If you've always been the person who says, I'm just trying to get by, it's time to replace that with, I'm learning to thrive. If you've said, I'm not good with money, replace it with, I'm becoming a master of my finances. Language is transformation. It's the difference between staying stuck and stepping forward. Your words also influence those around you. Speak fear and you spread fear. Speak doubt and you drain the room. But speak belief and you activate greatness in others. Your voice has the power to be a catalyst, to inspire, to encourage, to empower. Don't use your mouth to multiply problems. Use it to multiply potential. To be aware of the language you allow into your environment. What you listen to becomes what you live with. If people around you are constantly negative, you'll begin to absorb their language and reflect their mindset. Guard your ears as much as you guard your tongue. Surround yourself with voices that lift, not limit. Some people say they're just being realistic when they speak negatively. But realism is not pessimism. Realism acknowledges facts. Pessimism magnifies limitations. Optimism, on the other hand, is not denial, it's defiance. It's speaking life in the face of lack. It's calling things that are not as though they were. It's aligning your words with your future, not your fears. There's a reason leaders, visionaries, and high performers pay attention to their language. They understand the ripple effect. A single declaration can change direction. One sentence spoken in alignment with purpose can shift your emotional state, your thinking patterns, and even your external results. Speak as if everything you say matters, because it does. You may not always control what happens around you, but you can always control what comes out of your mouth. Your words can either reinforce your situation or rewrite it. You can either echo your limitations or declare your liberation. Every sentence you speak is a brushstroke on the canvas of your life. Choose them wisely. Excuses are dream killers, and they don't show up wearing warning labels. They arrive dressed in logic, coated in reason, and masked as valid explanations. But behind every excuse is a surrender. Behind every reason why you can't is a decision not to try. Excuses are deceptive because they feel justified, but they rob you blind. They steal your time, your effort, and your future. Most people don't recognize excuses as the enemy because they're wrapped in self-protection. Excuses give us something to hide behind. They shield us from the discomfort of failure, from the sting of rejection, and from the weight of responsibility. But what they also do is build invisible cages. The more excuses you make, the smaller your world becomes. Your potential suffocates under the pressure of your own justifications. It's easy to convince yourself that the timing isn't right, that you need more money, more support, more information, or more clarity. But time doesn't wait for perfection. Success doesn't show up when everything is aligned. It shows up when you decide to move despite the mess. Excuses feed the illusion that progress is always around the next corner, when in truth, progress begins the moment you take ownership. There's a difference between a reason and an excuse. A reason acknowledges a reality. An excuse builds a wall around it. You can say, I don't have the money, and leave it there. Or you can say, I don't have the money, so I'll find a way to generate it. The first ends the conversation. The second begins a strategy. One creates paralysis. The other sparks possibility. Excuses are sneaky. They don't always shout, they whisper. They say things like, you're not ready yet. What if you fail? Or someone else is already doing it better. These thoughts seem protective, but they're poisonous. They lull you into a false sense of safety, and before you know it, you've talked yourself out of opportunities that were yours for the taking. Your mind is a master at protecting you from discomfort, but it often does so at the expense of your destiny. Every time you buy into an excuse, you reinforce the belief that growth is optional, that playing small is safer, that waiting is wise. But most of the time, waiting is just fear in disguise. It's not about preparation. It's about procrastination dressed as planning. Excuses multiply. Once you start making one, they grow. You'll find a reason for everything. Why you can't wake up early, why you didn't make the call, why you skipped the gym, why you haven't started the business. It becomes a cycle of self-sabotage. One excuse leads to another, and suddenly you're stuck in a life that doesn't look anything like what you imagine. You have to become ruthless with your own rationalizations. You have to interrogate your excuses. Ask yourself, is this the truth? Or is this a story I'm telling myself to avoid risk? Most people don't lack talent. They lack confrontation with their own comfort. They choose easy over excellence, familiar over freedom, excuses over execution. When you stop making excuses, you start making progress. It's not about being perfect. It's about being honest. It's about saying, I haven't done it because I chose not to, and then deciding to change that choice. Ownership is the first step to elevation. You can't fix what you won't face. You can't change what you constantly justify. The harsh truth is this: nobody owes you success. Nobody is coming to save you. If you don't do the work, if you don't make the decision, if you keep allowing excuses to be your lullaby, your dream will remain exactly that, a dream. At some point, you have to decide that your goals matter more than your reasons. Excuses can sound noble. You'll hear people say, I'm just waiting until I can give it my full attention. Or I don't want to do a halfway, but the truth is, halfway done is still better than never starting. You don't need the perfect moment. You need movement. You don't need full capacity. You need full commitment. Start where you are. Excuses will always have good timing. Dreams never do. If you're serious about success, you must declare war on your limitations. That means no longer allowing them to be part of your language. Stop saying, that's just how I am. Stop saying, I've always struggled with that. Stop saying, I'm not like other people. Every time you speak those things, you reinforce the wall between you and your potential. You were not born with limitations. You inherited them. You can break them. Excuses offer momentary relief but long-term regret. They feel good in the short term because they absolve you of pressure. But later, when the moment is gone and the opportunity has passed, you're left holding nothing but could have beens. You don't get that time back. You don't get that window again. Excuses have a cost, and the invoice always comes due. The truth is, most of the people who are doing the things you dream about had the same reasons you do for why they couldn't. They had kids, they had debt, they had fear, they had trauma, but they decided not to let their story end there. They refused to let their excuses be louder than their mission. They didn't wait to feel ready, they acted and became ready in the process. Excuses are seductive because they absolve us of responsibility. They allow us to blame our past, our parents, the system, or society. But as long as you're pointing the finger outward, you give away your power. Responsibility is not about blame, it's about control. When you own your part, you take back your authority. You become the one steering the ship, not just riding the wave. The shift begins when you realize that your life is a reflection of your decisions, not your conditions. Yes, your background may have shaped you, but it doesn't have to define you. Yes, challenges may have slowed you down, but they don't have to stop you. Excuses shrink in the face of someone who's made a decision. Nothing is more powerful than a made-up mind. The life you want is on the other side of every excuse you've believed. It's on the other side of the story you told yourself about why you can't, shouldn't, or won't. When you strip away the story, all that's left is a choice. Will you move forward in faith, or will you stay stuck in fear? Will you find a way, or will you find another reason to wait? Every time you reject an excuse, you take a step closer to the person you were created to be. Every time you silence the inner voice that says, not yet, you turn the volume up on your potential. Excuses feel safe, but they are silent assassins. They kill without you even knowing it. They don't just destroy goals, they destroy who you could have become. The environment is everything. Not just the physical space you occupy, but the emotional, mental, and relational climate you surround yourself with. The people you allow into your life, the voices you listen to, the energy you absorb, all of it matters. You don't just live in your environment lives in you. It shapes how you think, how you believe, and how you behave, whether you realize it or not. Scripture says, put on a new outer, he got trouble. If you're in a place where average is accepted, excellence will feel like rebellion. If you're surrounded by complainers, ambition will sound like arrogance. If the people in your circle normalize struggle, then striving for success will seem unnecessary. You begin to conform to the energy of your environment because consistency is more comfortable than conflict, and eventually you shrink to fit what's familiar. Environments are more powerful than willpower. You can have all the discipline in the world, but if you are constantly exposed to doubt, fear, negativity, and limitation, it will wear you down. You can only swim upstream for so long. If the current of your surroundings pulls against your purpose, it becomes harder and harder to make progress. That's why many people feel like they're stuck, not because they're not capable, but because they're not in the right environment. Your environment reinforces your identity. If you're in a place where you're always reminded of your past, your pain, or your problems, it's difficult to envision a future. But if you step into an atmosphere where possibility is spoken, where progress is praised, and where purpose is pushed, you begin to think bigger. You begin to imagine differently. You start to believe that maybe more is possible for you. Energy is contagious. If you're around people who are always tired, discouraged, or bitter, you will start to carry that same weight. Even if it's not yours, it seeps into your spirit. But when you're in an environment of growth, vision, and faith, it lifts your head. It stirs something inside you. It wakes up the parts of you that have been asleep under the influence of mediocrity. Many people underestimate the role of proximity in their destiny. Who you're around determines what becomes normal. If you're the most motivated person in your environment, that's a problem. You need people who challenge you, who stretch you, who don't let you settle. Your next level will often require a next level circle, one that refuses to let you quit on yourself. Sometimes growth requires separation, not because you're better than others, but because you're becoming better than you were. You can't rise while staying tied to anchors. Some environments are familiar but fatal. They feel safe because they're known, but they're silently killing your potential. You can't thrive in soil that was never designed to support your kind of seed. Even your physical space carries weight. A cluttered, chaotic environment creates stress and confusion, but order, excellence, and intentional design produce clarity. Your outer world reflects your inner world, and sometimes changing one helps heal the other. When you walk into an environment that speaks success, your mindset starts to match it. The surroundings remind you of what's possible. You don't need a luxury lifestyle to have an empowering environment. What you need is intention. You can create a corner of your world that reminds you of who you are becoming. Put up affirmations. Designate a space for focus. Surround yourself with books, messages, music, and visuals that align with your vision. Environment isn't about wealth, it's about alignment. Your phone is part of your environment. Your social media feed is shaping your belief system every day. If your feed is filled with drama, distractions, and comparison, it is affecting how you see yourself. Curate what you consume. Follow people who inspire growth, not just entertain you. What you scroll past daily is either feeding your dream or draining it. The conversations you entertain are part of your environment. If all you do is talk about people, problems, and the past, you are rehearsing limitation. But when you engage in dialogue about ideas, strategy, faith, and elevation, you begin to think differently. Conversations are not casual. They are constructing mental frameworks. Be careful what you allow to build in your mind. You are never meant to grow in isolation, but you are also never meant to grow in the wrong company. The right environment will call you out and call you up. It will correct you in love and challenge you in truth. It won't always be comfortable, but it will always be constructive. Elevation requires friction, and friction requires the right kind of company. Even your language changes with your environment. When you're around confident people, you begin to speak with more authority. When you're around dreamers, your imagination expands. When you're in a room of action takers, procrastination becomes painful. We are social creatures. We pick up the patterns of our surroundings, even when we don't mean to. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is change your scenery. Get around people who remind you of your purpose. Sit in rooms where you feel small, not to shame yourself, but to stretch yourself. Don't avoid environments where you're the student. The most dangerous place is the one where you feel like you've arrived. That's where growth goes to die. Environment creates momentum. When you're in a place that's moving, you start moving too. It's easier to run when others are running beside you. It's easier to believe when others are believing with you. That collective energy becomes a catalyst. It moves you faster than your individual motivation ever could. That's why finding the right environment isn't optional, it's essential. You don't have to wait for the perfect environment to get started, but you do have to be intentional about building one as you go. Even if you're the only one in your circle right now with vision, protect it. Guard your mind like a sacred space. Don't let toxic thinking take root just because it's all you've ever known. The environment you tolerate is the environment you will eventually become. What you surround yourself with will either support your evolution or sabotage it. Most people don't fail because they lack desire. They fail because they never stepped out of environments that didn't match their destiny. Growth requires new space. It requires new standards. You cannot become new while staying immersed in the old. Everything you want to become is being shaped by what's around you right now. From the media you consume to the voices you honor, from the spaces you occupy to the relationships you maintain, it's all forming something in you. And over time, that formation will become your foundation. You won't rise above your environment. You will rise with it. Action fuels confidence in a way that nothing else can. You can read every book, listen to every podcast, and pray every prayer, but until you take a step, you're still standing still. Confidence is not built by waiting, it's built by doing. It's not the result of having all the answers, it's the byproduct of moving anyway. The more you act, the more you believe in your ability to act again. People often wait for confidence to come before they move, but confidence doesn't precede action, it follows it. It's not the starting point, it's the result. If you wait until you feel ready, you'll be waiting forever. Ready is not a feeling, it's a decision. And once you decide to move, something shifts. You prove to yourself that fear doesn't own you. You teach your brain that courage can be louder than doubt. Every small action is a vote for the person you're becoming. Every time you do something uncomfortable, you stretch your identity. You begin to see yourself differently. You stop seeing yourself as someone who hesitates and start seeing yourself as someone who executes. That shift, even if it's tiny, becomes a crack in the wall of insecurity that so many people live behind. It doesn't have to be massive action. Sometimes it's the smallest moves that have the biggest impact. Waking up early, making the call, starting the business page, sending the email, writing the first sentence. These may seem insignificant in the moment, but they are laying the foundation of belief. They are reminders to yourself that you are not powerless. You are in motion. Confidence grows when you keep promises to yourself. When you say you're going to do something and then actually do it, you build self-trust. That trust is more powerful than motivation. Motivation comes and goes, but trust stays. And once you trust yourself, confidence becomes natural. You won't need to fake it. You'll just live it. Most people think they need clarity before they act, but often clarity is found through action. You don't need to know every step. You just need to take the next one. Movement exposes what's possible. When you stay stuck in your head, all you see are limitations. But the moment you begin to move, you find options, opportunities, and open doors you didn't know were there. Fear loses its grip when you take action. It may still whisper, but its voice gets weaker. Action silences fear because it shifts your focus. Instead of obsessing over what could go wrong, you begin to engage with what's going right. You start experiencing results, progress, even if it's imperfect. And that experience becomes evidence. You don't need to feel brave to take action. In fact, bravery is acting in the absence of that feeling. It's choosing movement in the presence of fear. And every time you do it, your bravery builds. Not because you're fearless, but because you're faith-filled. You begin to realize that fear doesn't have to dictate your decisions. It can exist, and you can still move. Confidence is not arrogance. It's alignment. It's the alignment between what you believe about yourself and what you demonstrate through your actions. When those two things match, confidence feels authentic. It's not forced or loud. It's rooted and stable. You're not trying to prove anything. You're simply walking in what you know you're capable of. Action turns potential into progress. Everyone has potential, but few translate it into results. Why? Because they don't move. They plan, they prepare, they pontificate, but they don't press go. The people who win in life aren't always the smartest or most talented. They're the ones who took action when others hesitated. They're the ones who said yes when everything in them was afraid to. Even failure builds confidence if you respond correctly. When you take action and it doesn't work, you learn, you grow, you adapt. And in that process, you gain confidence not because everything went right, but because you realized you can survive when it doesn't. That kind of confidence is unshakable. It's not based on success, it's built on resilience. The longer you wait to take action, the heavier it becomes. The task doesn't change, but your perception of it does. You start to build it up in your mind, you overthink it, you talk yourself out of it. But when you finally move, you often wonder why you didn't do it sooner. Because action reveals the truth. that it was never as big or as hard as it seemed. Action isn't about speed, it's about momentum. When you move, you gain traction. You begin to build habits, routines, and rhythms that make further action easier. Momentum is the secret weapon of the confident. Once it's on your side, you don't have to hype yourself up every time. You just ride the wave you've already started. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is take action. Stop waiting for the heavens to open. Stop waiting for the stars to align. Stop waiting for someone to validate you. Move. God doesn't steer parked cars. When you begin to move, you create the space for divine guidance. You create the space for insight and revelation. You don't need all the details to be confident. You just need direction. Confidence is not about certainty, it's about commitment. When you commit to the journey, even without knowing every turn, you send a signal to your subconscious. I am someone who takes steps. And that identity shift changes how you approach everything else. People talk about having a breakthrough, but often breakthroughs come from follow-through. They come from doing the thing consistently, not just waiting for a big moment. Every day you take action, you break through limiting beliefs. Every day you move forward, you chip away at doubt, and eventually confidence becomes a byproduct of your consistency. You can't fake the confidence that comes from action. You can pretend for a while. You can dress it up, post about it, and rehearse the language, but nothing replaces the deep inner knowing that says, I've done the work. That confidence doesn't shake under pressure. It doesn't collapse under criticism. It's built on something solid. Experience. There are people less qualified than you living the life you dream about, not because they were more gifted, but because they moved. They didn't wait for permission. They didn't wait to feel enough. They acted. And their action created confidence. Their confidence created consistency, and their consistency created results. This is the pattern. This is the process. Action is always the starting point. Your breakthrough is one decision away. Not 100 steps, not a perfect plan, one decision. That's the power of choice. In a single moment, you can shift the trajectory of your life. You don't need more time, you need more clarity. You don't need more approval, you need more conviction. One choice can separate the life you have from the life you were created to live. Every great shift in someone's life began with a moment of decision. It didn't begin with applause. It didn't begin with certainty. It began with someone reaching the end of their excuses and the beginning of their commitment. They got tired of circling the same mountain. They got tired of making peace with mediocrity. And in that moment, they made a decision, not just with their words, but with their will. Decision is more than an idea. It's a line in the sand. It's the moment when your desire becomes direction. It's when you stop negotiating with doubt. It's when you quit entertaining the version of yourself that keeps losing. Decisions don't wait for perfect timing. They create it. They carve a path forward where none seem to exist. Because once a true decision is made, life begins to rearrange itself in response. You've been waiting on a breakthrough, but the breakthrough is waiting on you. It's not hidden. It's not far. It's not reserved for the elite. It's one decision away. A decision to believe again. A decision to act boldly. A decision to silence the voice of fear and amplify the voice of purpose. That single decision can unleash resources, relationships, and revelations that were already positioned for your path, just waiting on your movement. Most people don't miss their breakthrough because they weren't good enough. They miss it because they couldn't commit. They got close, they felt the pull, but they paused, they hesitated. They let doubt drag them back into delay. And the longer you delay, the more you convince yourself that you need more confirmation. But the truth is, clarity often follows commitment, not the other way around. There is something powerful that happens when you decide. It's as if heaven recognizes authority, not arrogance, authority. You were given dominion. You were given the ability to choose. And when you finally activate that gift, everything around you begins to shift. Your energy changes, your language changes, your environment starts to respond because now you're no longer hoping, you're walking. Breakthrough is not a mystery, it's momentum, and momentum starts with motion. A decision is the ignition key that gets the engine of your destiny turning. You don't have to know the full route. You just need to turn the key. That one turn, that one yes, that one act of obedience can become the trigger for transformation that decades of waiting could never produce. Fear doesn't need to disappear before you decide. In fact, the presence of fear often confirms the significance of the decision. The greater the destiny, the louder the resistance. But courage is not the absence of fear, it's the mastery of it. It's feeling the fear and choosing anyway. It's not pretending you're not scared. It's refusing to be controlled by what scares you. Sometimes you don't need more information. You've heard enough, you've read enough, you've been told enough. What you need now is decision, because indecision is a decision. It's a decision to stay the same. It's a decision to maintain instead of multiply. And nothing changes for people who keep choosing to stay comfortable. There are levels you haven't accessed yet, not because they're locked, but because you haven't leaned in. The door is unlocked. But it doesn't open with wishful thinking. It opens with a decision to knock, a decision to push, a decision to press through what's pressing against you. There is more for you, but more always demands a moment of choice. Don't underestimate the compounding power of one decision. A single choice to shift your mindset, to leave behind what no longer serves you, to pursue purpose over popularity, can ripple through your life for years. It can change how you think, how you speak, how you show up. That's why indecision is so dangerous, because it robs you of those ripples. It traps you in cycles. You're not stuck because of your situation. You're stuck because of your stance. Because you haven't stood up in authority and said enough. The power to break the cycle has always been in your hands. It's not about how long you've struggled. It's about when you decide you're done. You can stay there another year, another month, another day, or you can make one decision that breaks the back of delay. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs don't come from dramatic events. They come from subtle pivots. A decision to wake up differently, a decision to forgive, a decision to ask for help, a decision to show up even when it's hard. These decisions may seem small, but they carry weight. They carry destiny. And when you string those decisions together, you create a new pattern, a new direction. Every excuse is a decision in disguise. When you say, I'm too busy, you're deciding that your current schedule is more valuable than your future breakthrough. When you say, I'm not ready, you're deciding that your fear is a better guide than your faith. Excuses don't sound like rebellion, but they are. They rebel against your calling. And the only way to silence them is with decision. The breakthrough you're waiting for doesn't respond to emotion. It responds to execution. Cry if you must, pray as you should, but at some point you must move, because movement is what multiplies belief. The more you move, the more you believe, and the more you believe, the more boldly you move. That cycle begins with decision. No more flirting with your potential. No more dating your dream and ghosting your destiny. Make a decision, the kind that demands change, the kind that costs comfort, the kind that shifts atmospheres. You are not confused, you are called. You are not too late, you are right on time. You are one decision away from the version of you you've only imagined. There is power in your ability to choose. And when you finally understand that, you stop waiting for life to hand you a breakthrough and you start reaching for it with faith, with fire, with a decision that says, I don't know what's on the other side, but I refuse to die in the same place I was born. You don't need more time. You need a moment of resolve. One decision can set everything in motion. One moment of clarity, one bold yes. One act of surrender, one step toward the unknown. And from that single choice, a floodgate opens. Not because the process is easy, but because the direction is right. And when your direction aligns with your destiny, all of heaven begins to back you.